Okay, welcome back. In this episode, I get sanding on Stowaway's hull. So she was lifted beginning of September. I cut the season short just a little bit. Wanted to make use of some of the nice weather, which we still got, which is quite nice. I really wanted to get on with this job. Paint job had failed completely, and the green was hanging off the old paint work as well, which was horrible. So I was really keen to get her lifted and make a start on getting rid of it. So fortunately for me, I had a couple of friends who were going to give us a hand on the first day, give me a head start on this, which was really kind. So I had also acquired a bit of tower scaffolding from my brother. He's got plenty of this sort of stuff in his garage, being a builder. So he wasn't using it, which was handy. So I pinched it off him, and that was going to enable me to kind of work on a platform instead of on a ladder, which I really wanted to avoid. Set up both of the platforms in front of the hull, and I guess starting the easiest areas, and then just relocate the platforms as we move around. A little bit tight around here, but that shouldn't be a problem with a ladder. Actually, you can just see. Wow! Can't wait to get a sander on this. So I've got some assistance from a couple of friends today. They should be coming down in a little bit. So just a bit of gear. Just got some dust masks because this is going to be a pretty horrible job. Yeah, this is the sandpaper I'm actually using. It's 60 grit, so heavy removal. And this is the stuff. It doesn't. I think it's the aluminium grit type paper, which doesn't clog up the sandpaper as much when you're sanding, which is a little bit better for sort of heavier removal stuff like we're doing. Picked up a 400 watt orbital sander. I did have that one from when I first ran into Stowaway and tried to clean the hull up, but that is on the way out, I think. But it's like a standby sander, and then plenty of gloves, some goggles, water. So the merry men turned up, and we were about to fire up the sanders and make a start. It was straight into it, and a pretty messy job. Quite quickly we were starting to take this paint off. Horrible manky. I don't know how many years this paint had been on. Now the top layer came off quite easily, but the layers underneath were, I don't know, it had maybe a 2-pack paint which had been on there previously and had failed. It was quite clear within the first hour that this was going to be quite a lengthy process. Even though the top layer looked flaky and came off quite easily, it was the paint underneath that which took quite a lot of effort to shift. Okay, first visit to Screwfix, and we're getting more sanders, sanding pads. We're thinking of using, going to try some 40 grit because the paint is actually really thick, and it is coming off with the 60 grit, but yeah, the 40, which I've just picked up, hopefully will make this process a little bit quicker, although we'll have to probably be a bit careful. The lads are using 150mm sanders, so I've got some 60 and some 40 for that as well. So yeah, let's get back to the boatyard. It looked like there's a queue on the other way back on the A14, conveniently enough, so I might end up being a bit longer than I planned. But yeah, let's get back to the boatyard. So if you're ever thinking about taking on a boat project, this is sort of the kind of work that you're likely to face. Lots of sanding, resources, so Saturdays and Sundays, staring very closely at your boat hull, trying to make it look a bit shinier is the end goal. That is all it is to it. You're not doing it for anyone else's benefit other than, well, your own and anyone else who's looking at it from the outside. I'm going to call that thing the bull. just getting through some material. They've got a big patch there from an incident. Obviously the gel coat is quite thin in this area. It's back down to fiberglass. Unfortunately, as we progressed down the side of the hull, we started finding that the gel coat had quite a lot of cracks in it, which could have also been the reason for the failure of the paint job in most areas. So as a result, it had to be taken off. There's no way that even a 2-pack epoxy was gonna stay on a failed gel coat layer. Okay, so that was a pretty hectic first day. Kind of know what we're dealing with now in terms of the layers involved with this, with the hull paint at least. We've sanded back probably about 4 layers. Overall about one side of the boat. So yeah, made excellent progress. I'm gonna go have a wash now because I've got dust in my ear hole, and yeah, see how we get on tomorrow morning. Best part of 8 hours yesterday with 3 of us sanding this hull. We had most success on the front. It was the hull looks in pretty good shape at the forward section, however the midsection is starting to sort of show a few signs of age-related incidences and stuff like that. We've got this patch here which looks like it's been fed and filled at some point from a impact or maybe a grounding, I'm not sure. And then the same here, there's another section here. This I think is probably just a bit of water trapped or got into the seam between the original gel coat, whatever that is, and the repair job. But my other concern is that it could actually also be the chain plate. So typically you'll have the chain plate is installed inside the hull, and then you may get some water ingress in through the chain plate, the top of the chain plate, either through seawater or rain, and it just builds up over a period of time. I've just popped that with a small little drill hole, and it has been seeping out overnight. It's pretty horrible and manky, but I think I'm just going to monitor it and see how it it hasn't actually run too much. It's only a very small area, so I'm kind of hoping that it is just a little bit of trapped water along that repair patch. So we've made it all the way to just adjacent the cockpit, and just a small area to do this morning, which I'm going to carry on with. The gel coat is really thin in places, so as soon as we've taken the paint back and the primers and all the rest of it that's underneath there, it's straight onto the gel coat. So there are some areas where we've just taken back the gel coat back down to almost fiberglass, which isn't a bad thing, and it gives the primer a good bed, but I don't want to take it right back to the fiberglass because it's going to mean a heck of a lot of material being removed. We've got extractors and the like, so we're just trying our best to capture as much of this as possible while we're doing it. Such a smooth hull in comparison to what I have been sailing with. Must have had quite a lot of drag through the water with just that rough surface. Just going to talk a little bit about the sanders. There were 2 types of sander we were using yesterday. Both myself and George were using quite a similar type of orbital sander, but this one I picked up for about 50-60 quid, and it's the Urbar
400 watt sander. Comes with like a little catch pot and everything. It's pretty good in general. I was using about 60 grit around my area, and it does the edges quite nicely as well. So when you come around to doing the sort of lower parts of the hull, it starts to curve, so it's always quite gentle with the way it takes it off. And yeah, it's actually easier to work down the actual water line as the hull goes onto the osmosis. It keeps the shape of the hull. You don't start taking too much material off, so you end up flattening this off, which is what I'm kind of trying to avoid. It's 125mm sanding disc, so yeah, it takes bits and pieces off reasonably. I'd say the slower pace, to be fair. Mark, we're using this sander, which is an absolute beast. I think they retail at something like 300-400 quid, but he was able to get rid of a lot of area with this. It's a 750 watt sander. It's got two modes. One is turbo and one is just the standard setting. It gets rid of a lot of area. It's 150mm disc, which we kept them on 60 grit. We actually had 40 grit in the end on the smaller sanders, but yeah, we didn't want to put them on a 40 grit on this sander, because it was just, we were a bit concerned that it was going to be a bit too aggressive, and in sort of areas where he had been working, it did take it off quite a lot of the gel coat and the sort of up to the fiberglass quite quickly, so we had to be a bit careful. The other thing is, you didn't want to work too close to the edge where the hull starts to shape, because we didn't, obviously with this sander it's going to take it off a lot quicker rate. So yeah, thankfully he's lent me his sander for at least sort of for a couple of weeks, just so I can make a bit more progress with it, really. Okay, back for another Saturday of sanding. I've only got myself here today, so I've just set up the tower scaffolding just there on its own, and going to try and make as best work as I can down the starboard side. So last time we were here we had issues with the sandpaper on this sander flying off everywhere, and I think what the issue turned out to be was that the actual pad had just worn away. This is the original pad, and you can see there that the there's no more hooks on it, it's just worn away. These aren't exactly cheap, so what you can do is buy sort of like a sacrificial pad, like a saver pad they call it, to basically save the hooks on the main pad from deteriorating as you're sanding, especially on bigger projects. Yeah, here's the savers pad, or they call it an intermediate pad as well. It just goes on that first, and then your sanding pads on top. So yeah, let's see how that works out. So the benefit of having these is basically these are a lot cheaper than buying a whole new pad itself. So on this type of sander, a proper Bosch unit is going to be, or Bosch pad is going to be about 55 quid. This one is like the knockoff version, so it's about half the price. I'm not sure how long it's going to actually last, but these are literally about 10 quid I think for a 2-pack. So yeah, just a little heads up on that one.
So some of you out there might be thinking, oh, why don't you use paint stripper or something like that? Why don't you use a heat gun and a scraper? So paint stripper would not work on this. It might work on the top layer of paint, but the coatings underneath are 2-part epoxy chemical paint. So there's absolutely no way you'd shift that with any amount of paint stripper, and it'd also be very, very expensive. A heat gun and a scraper, yeah, you might be able to, but I wouldn't fancy the fumes. Oh, to be fair, I don't fancy the dust either, but the fumes really would probably do a lot more damage. And the other thing with using a heat gun and scraping it off is that you're going to do a heck of a lot of damage potentially to the surface of the gel coat, which you kind of need there to form a nice surface to enable you to get the new paint job on.
So I dropped off these little foldable trellises from a fellow Nicholson owner. These have come in real handy today for just getting around the sort of narrow part of the boat between Stowaway and the boat next door. Getting the tower scaffold is just a little bit tricky. As you'll see, I can't get it in there unless I just dismantle it and then put it back up again. So yeah, that's come in a lot of use today, and as you can see, we're sort of all the way down to the bottom now and getting there with it. So yeah, there was quite a lot of cracked gel coat, so I've had to take off quite a lot of that today, right back down to the fiberglass, more than the other side actually. So yeah, and every time I'm going over, like with the small sander, with 60 grit with the small, and then swapping out with 180 grit sandpaper to smooth it right off. So you can see the difference there just by getting that back, just how bad that actually was. That's mad. So there we go, not an easy job at all. So that's taken me about 9 hours of sanding today, from where I started this morning, just probably, I don't know, probably best part of a 1.5 meters from the bow of the hull, sort of down to that end bit, almost non-stop. So yeah, quite a lot of work. And then this side needs 180 grit as well, so there's a bit more sanding there to do as well. Sam Sands, that's the new channel name. Okay, so come down here today. We're getting really close to the end of getting the worst of the paint off, and I am really looking forward to ending this job. It's bloody horrible. So yeah, I've just got that section down the back end, and then the transom, and then we're looking at just smoothing off the surface, filling the holes, taking off this paint strip here. Yeah, just probably use the heat gun on there, I think, and then I started filling in some of the holes and what have you in the hull with a 2-part epoxy filler the other week, and that will just need ferring back, and I'm just going to go around the hull again. There's a few more spots that I need to fill in, but I'm going to let the dew kind of dry off the hull first before doing any of that. And then I've ordered some sort of like neutral alkaline detergent to wash the hull, and that's specified by Jotun. So before putting the 2-pack epoxy high build primer on, they do say don't use any thinners or any acetone or anything, because it can interfere with the actual like mix of the epoxy paint. So they say a neutral alkaline mix. So I've ordered some of that online, and I'll wash the hull over with that before looking at doing the first coat. But that's probably going to be maybe next weekend if the weather's good. So it would be perfect for a first coat today, but I'm simply not ready. This hull is not ready yet. It also needs to be sort of faired off a little bit. I can see a couple of kind of uneven parts of the hull where I've been using, I can see it there, I've been using the high power sander, and it just needs to be faired off. Otherwise you're going to start painting that on and it's going to look like a steel hull with all sort of like kind of undulations in the paint. So yeah, I just need to sort of fair that off with a smaller size sander, and just to kind of get the shape back a little bit, and then we're sort of getting to the point where we can start looking at paint. So but really can't rush this job when it comes to preparation. There's a real emphasis on it, to be honest.
I'm working on the transom, just removing the decals with a heat source, because I found with the sander it was heating up the glue and then just clogging up my sandpaper. So yeah, I had to just remove it with the heat source first, which made pretty quick work of it, to be honest. So I was kind of quite close to the end now, and probably best part of 60 hours of work to take the worst of the paint off. I'm not sure how much that would have cost in the yard, probably 30 or 40 quid an hour, and you can work out the rest. So there we have it, maybe 30 years worth of paint taken off and back to the gel coat. I hope you find this video useful for anyone who's due to tackle a job like this. If you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments box below, and thanks for watching.